welcome to the official Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast. My name's Ian.
And my name's Nikki, bringing you the best in comics and graphic novels and updates from the festival.
Hello and welcome to the Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast, episode 50! My name's Ian.
And I'm Nikki. See, I was waiting for my little introductory bit there.
There you go, you got your little introduction bit.
Thank you.
Episode 50. I mean, come on, let's just...
Go on.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank my mum.
Why?
Giving birth to such an amazing person like Don't look at me like that.
You know I said don't have headphones. I'm just doing laughing at the right point there. Anyway.
You told me not to wear the headphones.
Thank you to the crowds there for joining in.
Yes.
Yeah. 50 episodes, that's quite a lot.
That's not bad.
Almost as old as you.
I'm going to take the soundboard away from you. Is this why you told me I didn't have to wear my headphones?
No,
so you can just
but
insert horrible things about me.
It all works, and it's all funny for me. Anyway, on this episode, we've got the lovely Hannah Berry.
She is lovely.
Come on to talk about being the new UK Comic Laureate.
Mm-hmm.
Wearing a cloak of doom, I think
I don't think it's a cloak of doom.
It's not a cloak of doom. That sounds more fun, though.
It wasn't a cloak of doom.
To put it on,
or
and you get
younger.
younger. The opposite of Shazam, which we're going to review later on in the episode as well. Linky.
Oh,
no?
Stop.
Okay. We've also got reviews of Labyrinth Coronation, which you've been reading.
I read that.
And one that I've read, Something Amiss by Ian Summers as well.
Is that the one I read as well?
You had a read of it as well, didn't you?
I did. I was going to say, I'm pretty certain I read that one too.
Well, I never know.
You'll find I'm on the ball this time. Oh, yes.
Okay. Before we get into reviewing books and Shazam, I'm going to talk some non-comic related.
Oh, God.
Because it's very exciting.
Okay.
Star Wars.
The
new trailer.
Okay.
Why are you not?
You know I don't get on the hype train for anything. Well, I was going to get on the hype train for Hellboy, but that doesn't look so good now.
Well, no. That sounds like it's had depressing reviews. It doesn't sound like it's very good. And I'm willing to ignore a few, but...
Some people have liked it. And there's parts of it that are good, which I want to go and see it anyway. So
well, I want to see it, but do I want to pay money to the cinema to see it?
No, we're going to go sneak round the back.
That's the thing.
They'll
anyway.
never see us getting through this fire escape. I don't know.
Before this trailer for Star Wars came out, I said this film is make and break for me. And there's a lot of people are the same. After Solo, which was okay. It was
a forgettable film.
It was a nothing film when you consider it based in Star Wars. It should be something more. And obviously the last one. What was that called?
Yeah,
The Last Jedi?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
Revenge of the Sith.
Jesus. It wasn't that bad. But after The Force Awakens, we were expecting something really good. And we got space combat or Lost in Space or whatever you want to call it.
Milking space cows.
Yes, that'll do. Flying layers. Let's use one plot twist and blow a ship up with another ship that they could have done at the start, and it would have stopped all of this. You know?
Yes.
Anyway, so this is sort of that.
It's dragged you in a bit, isn't it, this one? Why has it dragged you in, darling?
2 reasons.
Go on. I know both, but carry on.
Lando Calrissian.
Yes, and... Yeah, I think that's the 2 hooks that's got everyone, to be fair. Well,
also, I mean, the rest of it looks fun, but that's, that just looks like The Force Awakens, let's be honest, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, yeah, it's bringing back old characters, and this is like the final...
Yeah, but they kill them off.
This is the final of the Skywalker story, essentially, is the idea behind it.
Lando's the last one left.
No, Chewbacca, thank you.
All right, Chewbacca's survived. It's a different
by
character.
Anyone.
It's not the real Chewbacca,
no,
is it?
It's not. Yeah, whether Lando dies or not, it doesn't really matter. At least he's back in the film.
Don't kill off all our heroes.
Well, he's too old to come back in another one.
Why?
But this is a closure. This is the closing point of that whole, sadly, 9 films.
Why did they have to?
Because...
Why did they have to kill our heroes to have their closure?
Because they're going to die anyway.
I don't care.
They're dying. Anyway, let's review. So I'm excited about that, December. I'm glad it's back in December as well.
Yes.
That's why we didn't see Solo. I'd have seen Solo at the cinema if it was on at December.
It wasn't.
It wasn't, so. Obviously coming up we've got the new Avengers very shortly to look forward to, which we'll be going to the cinema to
they've
see.
remade that. Who's playing
here we go.
Steed?
Ha ha ha. Ha ha.
An
ha,
appeal.
ha. I'm not even going to press the laugh button on that because it was atrocious.
3 hours of Avengers.
It'll be good.
Oh, I'm going to have to take a packed lunch.
That's fine. Just not something really stinky. Mackerel. Let's have mackerel at cinema.
Egg sandwiches.
In tin foil. So it makes as much noise as possible.
Anyone want an egg sandwich?
No. So let's talk comics. So
Yes.
you've been reading Labyrinth, which I've been waiting to the whole collection to come in. Then I'll sit and read it, but I need to.
Yeah, I can understand waiting for a collection to come in because you can sometimes forget. But no, it was very, very good.
Okay, explain the base storyline of this.
Right, so it's based at the same time as Labyrinth of the film. Labyrinth of the film, I like that. Labyrinth of the film. So it's at the same point as that in the setting wise, but it's telling the story of not the first person that ever ended up in the labyrinth, but of a woman who ends up in the labyrinth trying to find her child. And it's her adventures and how she makes friends. And some of the there's one goblin who goes throughout it, and there's an owl king, and so it's following her adventure.
Make a point because it happens in the first issue. Who is the baby?
I don't know if I can. I don't want to say.
It says it in the first issue.
I don't know. I can't remember if it does for sure.
It does, because that's him. He sat there talking about it. Okay, we won't. It's
no, because they're talking about the baby.
Yes.
But not that baby. They're talking about Toby.
Yeah.
And then the little goblin who gets called every name under the sun, he then tells the story to the baby of another baby that came there.
I mean, it fits. You can imagine this happening whilst
he has to nip out and go. So you've got excerpts of the film running alongside. But it will just be a background image of I've got to go now. She's managed to get through such and such.
So did the story fit with the existing story that we know?
It's set so many years before, so definitely not set in the 80s. It's set more, I don't know when, not Elizabethan, before that really.
Ye olden days.
Right,
that'll do.
Maybe Victorian, maybe not Elizabethan at all. But so it's set back then. So you've got it brings a different dynamic to a story. So it's completely separate. The story is completely separate. Because you also got the main bad guy is someone completely different. It's an owl king who is coming to the end of his life and needs a baby to transfer his power into, to take over.
To become the new king.
Yes, but in his image. So he's just basically taking over a baby.
Okay, I see.
To become him.
Enjoy the arts and...
Yep. No, I did enjoy it. I thought a couple of issues were a bit filler issues, but you get that with everything, don't you?
Unfortunately, yeah, and it's... The side of it though is with comics, you're paying £2 something. You don't want filler issues. You do want it a bit more tighter.
But I suppose they've gone right. You want 12 issues, and the last one is a little bit of a bumper issue. To be fair, a couple of them were a bit something and nothing. But on the whole, the story trotted along really well, and the ending of it links to a scene in the film, which I thought was quite good.
Okay, but one of the problems about releases, weekly releases or monthly releases, that I think we've sort of been put off with is, one, it takes so long to get the story completed on something like this. Yeah. Especially 12-issue one.
Yeah, because it didn't come out every week, this one.
And there is filler in there. And I think we've been put off a little bit to going back to buying the collected editions.
Yeah, I think so, because then you're not so bothered then if you've got a filler issue or whatever.
No, because it reads us for the full story.
Yeah, exactly. I expect it worked fine as a completed set, but there's just a couple and I went, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But otherwise there's some really interesting characters they've got in that. They tie up all the characters well at the end. My favourite is a thornbush that wants to hug everyone but he can't because he keeps hurting them.
How do you feel about licensed comics?
What do you mean?
Such as this being based on an existing property that wasn't originally a comic. I've always struggled.
This is fine because the story is completely different.
Yeah. There's so much Doctor Who out there, but I just don't know if I fancy reading it.
But it's the same as the books. The Doctor Who
books.
I
don't read the books either.
Oh, see, because I read the books, but I've not read the comics.
Well, you'd probably be fine. I struggle, I think, sometimes.
Oh, no, because it's such a vast universe, especially with Doctor Who. You can go and explore anything, anywhere. You can have different companions, which are never in this TV series. You've got a lot more scope, whereas with Labyrinth, it's one film.
Well, surely doesn't that opens the scope in because they can do what they want almost.
I guess so.
Especially going back in the past.
Yeah, they go back past to before Jareth is in charge. So you've got a different labyrinth altogether in some ways, and it's slightly more darker. But no, I don't have a problem with it myself.
Could you see that as a TV series?
This one?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it'd work as a TV series. It really would.
Hopefully then maybe after Dark Crystal.
We'll have to see how that goes.
They could do something like that because that'd fit nicely. Although, well, I suppose you could do it without having. You don't have to have.
We'll have to have CG Bowie.
Well, no, you don't have to have Bowie in it.
You don't have to have CG
don't
Bowie.
Have to. You could quite easily do that with just the voice of Barry saying, "I'm going off."
Oh, I didn't realise he was so northern. I thought
I'm going
London,
off
but
to get what woman to stop from getting baby back in a second, and then the goblin.
Why did
it
cut out as you were talking?
Because that's how some people up north talk. Okay. So
yeah, because you've got. I suppose it's a whole new world, isn't it? You can develop all these different monsters.
You wouldn't. Yeah, you could do that without Bowie. That's the only way to do a Labyrinth. Now, don't CGI him, please.
I was joking on the whole CGI Bowie.
Yes, but it would happen. You know it would.
Yeah, you could get someone to stand in from. To be fair,
just have someone do his voice. You don't have to, and just film from a goblin's level, so you just see the crotch.
See the crotch shots.
You just see the Bowie crotch. Sorry, sir, your crotch isn't big enough. You're in. Yeah, okay, so you enjoyed it overall.
Yes.
Say look at the collected edition when it comes out. I
think so, yeah. Well, obviously they'd have to now.
Well, yeah, now it's
it's finished now.
Something else we've read then is Something Amiss, an anthology comic by Ian Summers, which we've just been sent over. Which, first of all, the art I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
It's very cartoony. That's the best sort of thing I can say.
Yeah.
Right? It's really bright.
Yeah.
And it's ideal for what he's doing.
Yes.
So, you can read a bit of the introduction is probably the best way.
It's Something Amiss is a collection of comic art I created in my free time. The idea of bringing my favourite pieces all together in one comic came after attending Nottingham Comic Con and thinking that looks easy enough. I'm now suffering from PCCSD, post-comic creation stress disorder, after discovering it's not as easy as I first thought.
Is it, dear? I really enjoyed this comic. It is a collection of one-page shots.
Jokes.
Jokes, essentially. You need to be...
I'm having me a cup of tea.
You're having your cup of tea? Miles away from the microphone.
Because I don't want everyone to hear me have me a cup of tea.
Jeez, I apologise. It's a collection of one-shots, little comedic bursts, in a matter of frames, or even in some cases just one big
one
picture.
Page. Yeah.
And they're really enjoyable little jokey comic strips.
They make you go.
It's
everyone.
it's again. Please don't take offence to this, Ian, who's got the best name ever. It's perfect toilet reading material. And I mean that in the nicest way.
Yeah, I know you.
I really do.
I love this. We're going to have to do a toilet reading material trophy.
Stuff you can just pick up, have a read a page or two. There's no story you have to worry about. Pop it down, and depending on how long it takes upon said throne.
Yes.
I mean, to be fair, some of mine I'd have read the whole comic and more, but we won't go into that.
Thank you for making that so visual for me.
I can make it visual.
Please don't.
No. We'll stop there.
Yes.
Yeah, is that perfect? Just bit of fun material that you can read and pass to your friends who give a quick read and just enjoyable.
That's the word.
Yeah.
It's one of those, it's something to make you smile.
Yes.
And that's not a bad thing.
Definitely not.
In this world.
Definitely not. Something else that will make you smile is the movie we're going to talk about.
Okay.
Shazam!
Shazam!
No, you didn't extend it long enough.
I didn't want to extend it long enough because I'm one of the other Shazams.
Well, there's a spoiler.
You can take that out.
No, I'm not taking that out.
Oh, no.
Because it doesn't really matter.
Don't say that. I've just spoiled it. I haven't spoiled, but more going on about it.
Yes.
It kind of sounds like I'm spoiling it, and I haven't spoiled it, but you never know now.
So Shazam, for those who don't know, which I'm sure you all know, is the story of Billy Batson, who's a 14-year-old teenager. Mm-hmm. Who's no parents.
No. He's trying to find his mum.
Trying to find his mum, going from care home to care home.
Yeah.
Well, running away and being kicked out because he keeps running.
Yeah.
being mischievous to find information he needs.
He's just slightly off, not totally off the rails, but he's just a bit of a selfish teen, really. Well, all right, maybe he's selfish, but he's put up defences. Anyway.
Yeah. It's hard, isn't it, to create that image, because at the beginning of the film he's dealing with police and he does something very naughty. He does do something. And you got to think, well, yeah, I understand what he's doing, but at the same point, it's a very naughty thing to do.
Yes, but the police were kind of like, oh, it's him again.
Well, that's true. That's true. So the story follows Billy, who gets the powers to be able to transform into an adult superhero.
Yes.
With his mind still fully intact as a child.
Yes.
And that's the comic.
Yeah.
Joke behind it. So I've never read Shazam. I knew of Shazam. I knew of Captain Marvel. I knew of Shazam through some old DC comics, through DC cartoons. Like I'm sure he's been in one of the Superman episodes and stuff, you know. Yeah. And I never actually understood the character, what he was, until the movie sort of came out. I didn't understand that he was this kid. I thought he was just another Superman.
Yeah.
Virtually. But it really does add another... What's the word I'm after? It adds something... Stop smiling, you could have helped me. It adds something,
I like to see you.
It adds something to that DC range which they haven't got. It's like the kid version of Deadpool in some ways.
It adds some fun into the DC range, which is sadly lacking in fun.
But I'm Batman.
No, you're boring.
Hey, don't knock the Batman. So the film then sees him fighting Mark Strong.
A British person. Do we need a baddie? Get a British person.
Get a British person. Who is essentially after the same powers that Shazam has got.
Well, yeah, he wants to be the ultimate champion, isn't he? Yeah. He's the champion for the dark side.
Now, what I like about Shazam, it's all about magic. So it's not
sci-fi.
It's not superhero. It's not this. It's magic. Magic. That's magic.
You like it? Not a lot.
Paul Daniels never actually grew up. He was always a child. He never got big enough to be an adult.
What was the thing called?
I've no idea.
Oh, you know when him and Debbie McGee?
Yeah.
And, they had that kids program.
Ha ha, this away. Ha ha, that away. Is that the one? It might not be the one. God, we're old. Anyway, let's move on from that.
Oh, it's going to bug me now. But
you'll find out after this. Use the internet.
I'm using my power of my brain.
We're going to be here all day. But yeah, so the film follows that, and most of the film, or certainly the good first third to half of the film, is him learning his powers.
Yes.
Understanding his powers, which is where the comedic part comes in.
Yeah.
The film does sort of then go into usual bit of superhero ending with the fights against the bad guy, which...
That's fine. It's got to you can't really deviate too much from that kind of thing.
Did you feel it was about 20 minutes too long?
No.
Really? No, see, I did a little bit.
Oh, I liked it.
A little bit too... No, I enjoyed it, but I felt they could have cut a little bit out of it.
No.
It is over 2 hours long.
That's fine. Yeah, we didn't feel like over 2 hours long, so I was fine with that.
I felt the last fight went in a bit too long.
No, I like that last fight. Yeah. I think you're on your own there.
Okay, I'm on my own.
Yep.
Overall, though, I really enjoyed
it. It was wild abandonment.
I think one of the things I said, it's not a superhero movie.
No.
It's a
action
kids adventures movie. Yeah. It's the type of thing we'd come out of as kids and go, yeah.
Well.
And when you grow up, you remember it with those memories.
Yes.
There's not many films. It don't feel there's many films.
No.
There probably is.
No, there isn't. There really isn't. And there isn't that Goonies
or even Indiana Jones back in the day or that sort of Little Trouble in
Big Trouble in Little China.
Those sort of films that when you grow up, you look back. And I think this will be for kids. This will be one of those that they'll look back and...
Yeah.
And it's because it's got the kids.
It's because... No.
You need the kids to make the fun, and then you need the humour and the adventure.
Yeah, and then you need good script writing.
Yeah.
And that one had it all. It is like that they watched the Goonies and went, we are sadly lacking in these films. Let's do it with this one. And they hit the nail on the head. So
hopefully, should this continue, which sales have been great on it, so it's been fine. Black Adam is probably going to be playing...
I thought you were going to say Black Adder.
The next Black Adder is going to mix with... No, Black Adam is going to be played possibly by The Rock.
Awesome.
Now, can you imagine...
he doesn't do bad films.
He doesn't do bad films.
Skyscraper.
Okay. Yeah.
Scorpion King.
I'm talking now. Scorpion King was the beginning of his career. We don't talk about Scorpion King.
Okay.
But can you imagine him being a baddie?
Rampage.
Playing against... Rampage was fun! Playing against Zachary and Shazam.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
That'd be brilliant.
It'd be very, very good.
And to see him play a baddie as well would be good fun.
I bet he's really up for that.
Obviously, he's mentioned in the film because he's the one that kills the wizards, leaves the one there. So that's Black Adam out there. So it'd be exciting to see if that happens.
Because now they don't know there's more magic.
More magic. There's magic
More magic.
everywhere.
Magic everywhere.
So I think it is generally just a massive success.
Yes.
Of a movie.
Yeah. And my kids came out loving it.
Mm.
So that's good. And James sat still. So that meant he really liked it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it has hit everything. And it's like hit our nostalgia and it's hit kids' sense of fun.
I hope
they don't lose it on the next one.
This, that whoever the new Batman is, they get just a little cameo or something silly. That's what they want. They don't want Batman and Shazam, but you want a little cameo of Batman and Shazam doing something that really takes a mick out of him, or Superman, or someone.
Yeah, because they have like a nod to that, don't they?
But can't.
It's properly a nod.
They couldn't really put the characters in because they're in a state of who's going to be the next Batman and what's going on with Superman. In fact, is he in it? So, but yeah, whoever the next Batman is, I'd love to see him in there just for a cameo and have the mick taken out of him in some way, shape, or form. Because that's the way to do it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It'd be good. I feel that'd be a good one to put Green Lantern in to introduce him in a Shazam film.
That might be a way of getting it back on its feet again.
Yeah, I think they need to stop the Justice League. Stop trying to do that.
Please stop doing that.
But have the universe central so that everybody is interlinked, and just they can jump in and out of films.
Yeah.
For cameos or stuff, but not.
Yeah, or missions or whatever.
Yeah, but not proper film. Yeah, not Justice League.
Yeah.
Because they just can't do.
No, they can't. They can't.
They can't.
They need to stop doing.
The characters aren't rounded enough.
No.
To link with, they're in their own little area. Anyway,
yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm right.
Oh, but I must admit, I agree with you on this one.
It's not often.
It isn't.
Excuse me while I die. Right.
Do it quietly.
Let's move on. We've got Hannah coming up. Yes. We've got Tom back on the show, reviewing Tim Burt's Asleep in the Back. That'd be dead. Comic all about.
My parrot is deceased.
And Mike and Pete are back again with part 3 of their discussion. So this is the end.
We cannot let them do this again. They're just not allowed. They can text each other.
Here's a point to that, though. I can see Tom joining in.
Oh, no.
6-hour episode. So we'll be back after the break.
Hello everybody and welcome to Small Pressed, the Small Press review section of the Comic Art Festival podcast, with me, Tom Stewart, from That Comic Smell podcast. Now this is the second time around, so this is now officially a recurring segment. Woo! So today I'm going to be speaking about a beautiful little book called Asleep in the Back by Tim Bird. Now Asleep in the Back is basically a sort of quaint autobiographical story of Tim Bird when he was making his way from his grandparents' house home when he was younger, and what the drive was like on the way home, and as it just got darker and darker and the skies were getting more red and it's just kind of snapshots of taking in the surroundings as he was going home and as he was slowly but surely drifting off to sleep. And then him sort of finding himself in a dream state where he's flying over all these little snapshots. From there, Tim gets a wee bit older and then he has children himself, and he starts to find out what the drive is like from his dad's perspective, and watching his kids sort of going through that whole drive home, and how it's taken in the different surroundings, but it's the same kind of car journey. I thoroughly enjoyed this comic. It's just so quaint and so beautiful and simple in its design, but so measured, and everything in it is just so perfectly placed. There's no oversaturation of words or anything throughout it. It just gives you a very basic rundown of what you need to know, and the rest is just very simplistic sort of illustrative style throughout it to keep it simple and keep you in that sort of almost childlike view throughout it. There's an absolutely beautiful use of negative space throughout this comic as well. There's a whole page at one point of a boy looking out of the window. I think it's young Tim at that point, looking out of a window at a lamppost as he's going past it, and the whole page is just pure white with him looking out the window at this lamppost. It doesn't even really show you the rest of the car or anything, but it's just so gorgeous, and it fits in because it just flows straight into rooftops from there, little snippets of rooftops. It's a very low colour palette as well. It's all sort of muted greys and terracotta skies and sort of mid-browns and whites, and there's little dots for headlights, which shows in the front cover especially. The front cover is absolutely gorgeous and comes as a print on Tim's website, but it's just little dots for headlights and then lampposts, just black silhouettes for the roads and the roadside, and then just the stars with a sort of muted sort of bluey grey sky, and just the title in a bold yellow at the top, Asleep in the Back, Tim Bird. Tim's actually putting this out himself. The last one that I read of Tim Bird's was The Great North Wood, which came out through Avery Hill, which obviously was a bit longer, a bit chunkier, but absolutely gorgeous. I adored that book, and to be able to read it within nature as well, and the story to be very nature centric was just, we could just take your breath away. It's absolutely beautiful, and this is much of the same, but this on a basis of, it very much plays on a nostalgic feeling, rolling in the back, going from your grandparents' house after just having dinner and making your way home and having that sort of long car journey, and you're starting to doze off as you're in the back of the car. I have very vivid memories of being in the back of the car, making trips to aunties and uncles' houses quite far out and coming back on country routes and having that sense of excitement of going home, but I'd had such a big day and starting to fall asleep, and he just captures it beautifully with just single panels on some pages of just the light reflecting on the front of the dad's face, or the side of the light coming in to reflect on the children's faces, and just telling you where they are, and then you get sort of glimpses of the dreams starting to come in as Tim's starting to drift off. The thing that got me though was, and it shows you him falling asleep and dreaming and everything, and him and his sister riding in the back of the car. They don't have anything. They don't have any sort of books or anything in their hands. They're just taking in the scenery. They're just sitting in the back of the car. Whereas it comes to Tim's family when he's grown up, and his kids obviously all have like cuddly toys, and they even have, the adults themselves have sat nav for getting about. There's an element of like sort of like an iPad or headphones, and there's a whole backpack full of goodies, like there's comics, and they've got like snacks and everything like that, whereas those two are just in the back of the car with nothing. Almost taking it in is the main focal point for them. They don't have any sort of extras, and yet the result is exactly the same, and it all just ends quite perfectly with a kind of, I'll say, a realistic twist, but it's nice, and it does wrap up with 2 solid pages of very much formulaic comic of panels, but just absolutely gorgeous, very simplistic, very lovely, doesn't outstay its welcome, it's got its message, it gets its point across very well, and in such a very beautiful style. Quite aptly placed on the back of the comic is Tim Bird's actual website as well, which is www.timothybird.co.uk, which will take you to all of his past comics and his past work as well, and you'll be able to access his shop from there, which is timbird.bigcartel.com, where Asleep in the Back is available for only £5. And he's got that beautiful print up there as well, that nice sort of Riso print, and a couple other ones as well. I picked up an earlier work of his called Rock and Pop. Whilst I was there, I've not got around to reading that yet, but I will be most likely talking about that in the future. And you can buy The Great Northwood from there as well, or you can buy The Great Northwood at averyhillpublishing.bigcartel.com. You can also find Tim Bird on Twitter at T_J_Bird. I just want to say a massive thank you to Tim for making this, because it just gave me so many good memories of riding in the car with my mum and dad when I was younger. Absolutely loved it. Just completely adored it from start to finish. Literally from front cover to back cover, it was just the absolutely most perfect book. So definitely check that out. If you enjoy hearing these dulcet tones, then head over to @ThatComicSmell on Twitter and Instagram, or Google That Comic Smell, where you will see links for That Comic Smell podcast on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, most places, and you'll be able to come and find me there. I'm also on Instagram at Uramix, URAMYX. And until next time, folks, this has been Small Pressed with Tom Stewart. Thanks very much, and I will see you next time.
Poos she does a day.
Maybe not into that much detail.
The consistency,
the colour, because it's like all about the colour.
The old Pantone chart out.
No, it really is all about the colour at the start.
Anyway, today we have Hannah Berry on the show. So, Hannah, it's been nearly 2 years since you first came onto the airwaves with us. Oh, it has.
Has it?
Bloody hell, really? My life is falling away.
Well, a lot's happened since then, and as we were just discussing then, congratulations, obviously, in order for yourself. As a little one has popped along.
Yeah, I popped out a sprog last year.
So, which is harder, graphic novels or children?
Oh, I think they both. They're both as rewarding and as unrewarding in similar ways. I think there's tiny incremental progress, which in both categories, which can be grueling but delightful, but grueling, but delightful, but grueling.
Yeah.
But a graphic novel only takes about 2 to 3 years, where a child is like we were just discussing, at least 15 to 18 years of your life taken.
I will say, I think probably that's the one area that graphic novels is more lucrative in than child rearing.
Yes, yeah, you're never gonna. Usually, don't see the money coming back, do you? Unless you're really lucky.
Yeah,
It's a shame. It's the wrong way.
They're opening a mine up here.
I'm going to say mines is the way forward, I think.
Ooh, what kind of mine?
Kids down the mine.
A coal mine,
coal mine, yes.
I thought they were all gone.
So did we.
Yes.
So did everyone.
Wow.
But it's up north, so you do for those type of things up north.
I thought it was all into fracking now.
Oh,
they were
mind
new
your
and
language, Hannah.
horrifying ways of destroying the environment.
yeah, that's it, isn't it? Yeah.
Ways to make your tap water go on fire.
Oh God.
Sorry.
Basically,
I'm not having a drink of water ever again.
Tap.
Essentially, Parliament is just using the Northwest as
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
as best way they
Can I
can.
swear on this podcast?
You go for it. I'll beep it out.
Big old. It's their big fucking toilet. I was going to say.
Yes.
That's how it feels sometimes.
It does, doesn't it?
Don't even get me started.
No, we're not. So, in the past, say 2 years since you were on, have you been involved in any comic projects? Then I know you did something with Scream, the 2000 AD project.
With Screen?
Yeah.
No.
No, I've messed
Did
up
I?
on there.
No.
I thought you did.
Oh well.
Oh no.
I'll delete that bit.
No. Oh, I'd like to. If there's any opportunities, I'll take them up. What have I done? I mean, since my daughter was born,
Yeah.
I've got a monthly comic strip in Prospect magazine.
Excellent.
And that's my only regular cartoon / comicking gig. That's all I've I was going to say that's all I've got time for. That's not even true. I don't even have time for that. I'm just trying to claw it in around nap times.
Oh, those nap times.
Oh, yes.
Oh, there's not enough. The girl does not like to nap. She's not a fan of naps.
Oh, no.
It's so I'm going back to children here. It's as you get slightly older, Peppa Pig is your friend. That's the way forward.
Yeah.
Peppa Pig, really?
Peppa Pig. That will eat up hours of time.
Oh, really?
I mean, it's not good parenting, but we all do it.
We've discovered the joy of CBeebies. You've got to say, hey, doggy, the best thing I've ever seen on TV.
Oh,
The
I
best.
don't know that one.
I'm feeling old now.
Yes.
Yeah, they're too old. You missed the doggy boat. Recommended, highly recommended.
Right, tonight's viewing.
Oh, really?
Okay, so where do you see the UK comic scene at the moment as it stands?
You're really asking the wrong person, because I feel like I've really been out of it for this whole maternity leave. I mean, I think I can tell you how I thought it was before I.
It's probably not changed. Let's be honest.
I mean, I feel like we're still on the cusp of being understood by the public at large. I've felt that for years. I don't know if that's really. I feel like that's not really changed. We're still, still about to break through. Any minute now, there'll be a graphic novel in Richard and Julie's book club, or on the shelves at Tesco's, or elsewhere.
If only.
Other places where in airport bookshops, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Any minute now.
No, I think you're right. It doesn't feel like since we started this, it's not moved forward in the eyes of public at all.
No, it is teetering, isn't it? We're just waiting for that moment.
Yeah.
If only there were big films that might push comics along.
Oh, if only.
If only.
But that's the thing. They only appeal to certain people, and I feel like they're doing a slight disservice to comics in other areas, because there's people who are big readers who are not into superheroes, who probably might like comics but think that that's all that comics are, and keep reminded that that's all that comics are. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just the people that I've spoken to, the few people I've spoken to, but it seems like it's anyway. That's it's.
But then,
it's good in one way and not so good in another.
But then you have films come out that aren't superheroes, like I Kill Giants, and there's no real reference in that it came from a comic.
Yeah.
They don't sort of push it, or
What was that TV series? Oh God, with the kid that was a bit of a psychopath. Went on the run with a girl.
No.
Oh my God, what was? I can't.
We've not seen that one.
I'm stuck with Happy now, Matt.
This is the other problem that I have, is that baby brain is a very real thing.
That doesn't come back.
No, really?
Oh,
I was using
sorry,
that
it
brain.
might come
this
back.
show is destroying her now.
Oh God!
I'm sorry. There's wine and chocolate, though. There's always wine and chocolate.
I have cracked open the gin this evening.
You're laughing like you didn't buy a bottle of rum earlier,
Yeah,
but anyway.
I'm laughing because I know I bought a bottle of rum earlier.
Oh, and it's just waiting there for you.
So, you are now officially the UK Comic Laureate for the next 2 years. Congratulations to that.
Yeah, I am.
So, how did that come about for yourself?
Well, I got an email saying, "Would you like to be the next Comics Laureate?"
You see, I wanted something a bit more grandeur than that. Make a story up.
Oh, well, I was walking through the forest late one night. It was dark and stormy, and there was a puff of smoke and a wizard. A wizard,
Yeah.
popped out. No, so it was an email. It was an email. But there was a very nice handing over ceremony when I was, because I had to keep it quiet. That was the thing. I was told, and I had to keep it quiet for months and months that this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then there was the big ceremony at the Lakes Festival last year, where Charlie Adlard, the last Comics Laureate, the most recent Comics Laureate, not the last Comics Laureate. It's not like Last of the Mohicans. He handed over his mantle, and there's an actual mantle. You've seen the mantle, right?
Oh yes.
Oh yeah. We were there.
Yeah. Blue,
Yes.
velvety. The thing is, I think I'm right in thinking that Dave Gibbons had it made by costume making pal, and I don't think I've ever really spoken to him, but he's very tall. He must be very, very tall. This cape is it trails along the ground behind me. And when I wear it to the shops, I have to really be careful to tell the shoppers to not walk on it.
It's like a little tent, a little cozy tent you can read to people underneath it. You see, that's the plan.
It's basically, it makes shoplifting a lot easier.
There's that.
So, did you get any advice from Charlie at all as he was handing this over to you, or since then, of course?
He leaned in, he grabbed me by the back of the neck and said, "Don't fuck this up." No, he didn't do that.
See, that I can believe it, however. I can believe that.
No, he's a really nice guy. I don't think he would do that. He said there's a lot of good networks out there to help with various bits and pieces, which has proven true. There's a lot of people who are very interested in getting comics into schools, to getting comics to be used as literacy tools, that kind of thing. People are very keen. It's nice. It's nice having this much enthusiasm. I don't think I've ever been surrounded by this much enthusiasm before. It's lovely.
That's good.
Yeah, no,
It's good to get used to that.
Yeah. So, what are your plans in the role then? What are your aims and objectives?
So, it's about. I'm going to try and continue with literacy in schools, as both Charlie Adlard and Dave Gibbons did before me, or as I like to call them, Charlie and Dave, because I feel like we're friends now. I hope they don't mind me calling them that. And I wanted to focus as well on, if I can, getting comics to be used as to help with people learning English as a foreign language, because I know they really help with teaching languages. I know that my mum was she's from Ecuador, and she went to school in the States when she was very young, and she had very, very rudimentary English skills. I don't think she'll mind me saying very basic English skills. It's much better now. I should add. But at the time, it was she didn't speak a lot of English, and she was really struggling in school. And her dad used to sit down with her and read lots of comics, and which is lovely, I think. And it's a very accessible way of learning a language. So that's plan one. That's prong one of my literacy, my laureate fork, if you will. And then prong two is to try and help with adult literacy in prisons, because the literacy rate in prisons is really low. I think it's something like the average reading age is about 8.
Really?
It's awful. It's really shocking. Also, people don't really care what happens to prisoners, which is really, really sad.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my literacy fork, my laureate fork. Those are the prongs.
In some way.
Also ambassadoring, doing a bit of ambassadoring for the comics format. I've got schemes, I've got plans for that, but I don't really want to say them in case nothing happens. It's easier to pretend that I didn't try if nothing comes about.
I think the interesting thing about, obviously, the prisons is that all feeds back from school, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So if those comics were there for those kids who weren't interested in reading books or weren't willing to try, or for whatever reason, they may not have got to that point, not saying they wouldn't have done whatever they've done to get in prison, but at least they may be reading better,
Yeah, because it's quite alienating not being able to read and write. I mean, there's such a fundamental skill that it's quite a barrier to being a part of society, I think.
Yes, yeah.
Well, yeah, you're not going to get a job. It's going to be very hard.
You're always an outsider, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So, how are you going to go about that in prisons? Then I'm intrigued by this. What sort of books would you take?
I'm going to commit a crime. I think about 5 to 10 years worth. Actually, no. The laureate. Why can't I say it? The laureateship, the laureate post ends in 2021, so probably
a smaller crime, lighter crime,
2-year sentence. No, well, this is it. I mean, I'm sort of relying on contacts that I'm making here and now, and also that the people that have gotten in touch, or people that are friends of friends, people who work with offenders, or people who have contacts in prisons on either side, I guess. But I used to work for the probation service before comicking quote unquote full time. Mm-hmm. And so I've still got some probation contacts that I'm leaning on quite heavily for what is left of probation after being decimated.
Well, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Chris Grayling, twat.
Yes.
So yeah, it's this is another area. There's rough schemes afoot, but nothing concrete. Because it's all very fresh and new. I've only been the laureate for a month.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I might have to come back in 2 years' time and tell you what I did.
Well,
and it'll sound a lot more spectacular than what I'm telling you now. Oh, I think I'll go into a prison and make people learn some comics, and they'll learn to write to read. And
Do you have any books in mind for prisoners to read, though? Is there any particular stories that you think would be ideal for them to start with?
Do you know what? I haven't even thought. No.
Other than your own, of course.
Sorry.
Other than your own.
Oh, of course, my own. That goes without saying. It's really just an elaborate way of getting my books everywhere. That's my clever scheme. I don't know, but I guess it would need some careful curating because, to be the most effective, but also to not have anything, any wildly inappropriate material. Mm-hmm. I guess maybe. There's certain topics that should be probably steered clear of. I would imagine. So if anybody has some suggestions, if anybody wants to, actually, I should say I've got on my website handaberry.co.uk. I've got if you go to contact, there's a way of dropping me an email. Feel free to contact me with your thoughts. If they're nice, or if you work with offenders, if you're connected to any charities or any excuse me, any NGOs, any groups that might be interested, mm-hmm. Or teaching English as a foreign language, or actually after the laureate thing was announced, a lot of teachers got in touch saying, what can we do with comics? Do you want to come to our school? Do you want to talk to us about this and these things? And there was one of my grand scheme in one of the prong one of the laureate fork, the one about literacy in schools, is to try to set up an online resource for teachers to be able to access comic-y bits and pieces for lesson plans, or maybe comic lesson plans. I'm not too sure yet, but also for there to be an online database of comics people who teach comics to kids around the country, and they can log on and find, or just go online and find people in their area who see what they do, see the kind of things they teach, see the other schools they've taught at, and then get in touch and say, hey, come teach at our school. I don't know why they're speaking in that voice. I don't think they all are in Scooby-Doo, but get them to sort of help put people in touch with, help put teachers in touch with people who teach comics.
That's a good idea.
That's a brilliant idea.
That's my plan. Yeah. The thing is, funding, that's an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, because there's a similar thing. I had my grand idea and then realised there's actually a similar scheme which already exists, called Cartoon Classroom. Set up by Stephen Merchant from the Cartoon Museum and David Lloyd, I believe. But I think that because it was all sort of put together and run by volunteers, I think it was sort of had to be done, around other actual paying work, and so I think it was by their own admission, it's not quite as it didn't take off as much as they'd liked it to. So I'm going to basically ride on their coattails and see if I can do a similar thing, but find some money.
Yeah, that's the only. Yeah. We can give you a quid, so I'm sure we can.
Oh, thanks.
We'll donate something of our very meager funds.
I wasn't asking, but I like I like the response.
But yeah, I think that is got to be the way forward, hasn't it? Just getting the teachers involved somehow.
Yeah.
It's the only way.
Yeah.
Because books in libraries don't work. They've got to learn about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot of teachers and librarians that are really enthusiastic about comics but just don't have the resources.
Yeah.
For one reason or another. Michael Gove, twat.
Well, we saw it, didn't we? Because we had obviously we get review copies of books and we just haven't got the room, so we passed them on to the local school, and they were so happy to get those.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it just shows the interest is there.
Yeah, and honestly, I think they're the most popular books because they're always the first ones that are stolen. That's how you know.
Because you can sell them on eBay, that's why. No.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So what are your plans as far as events this year? Have you got any lined up? Obviously, you're going to be at the Lakes.
Oh.
It is one of them, but... Hello? Oh. Last few bits. Hello?
Sorry, you said sell them on eBay and then it went dead, and I thought that's maybe what you'd gone to do.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure what happened there.
I don't know.
Right, what was I asking? Oh, I know events. I know.
My connection at this end.
Yes,
Sometimes a little patchy.
So, what was I going to say? What events have you got lined up for this year then? Obviously, you're going to be up here in October. Mm-hmm. Have you got anything else planned?
Yeah, I'll be back with the family in tow, I imagine.
Oh, excellent. Nice little holiday.
Yeah.
In the rain.
Which things am I allowed to talk about? Oh, God.
You've got Mac Pow in Macclesfield. I know that one.
Yeah. That one, okay. That was one I wasn't sure. Has that been announced? Yeah.
It has.
No, so Macclesfield, Mac Pow, in the month that it's in, that we all know, that we don't need to repeat, but you know when it is.
Yeah.
I'll be there. I'm actually looking at my calendar now because I'm not sure. I can tell you when the daughter's at nursery.
Okay, it's useful.
Yeah. So I'll be at Graphic Brighton in May. Mm-hmm. I think I'll be at LCAF in June. Oh yeah, Mac Pow, 22nd of June. There we go.
Yeah.
This is quite exciting. I might be at the. Sorry, they're all quite exciting, but this is also exciting. I might be at the London Film and Comic Con in July with the Dutch Comics Laureate. We're going to have a laureate table.
A laureate off.
A laureate
off. Yeah. Oh wait, hang on. Is that why she invited me? There can be only one.
Fight.
Oh no.
Well, with that cloak, that makes you a winner. Simple as.
Yeah, I'll swish.
Right.
Yeah, definitely swish.
So, what's your plan at the events this year? Are you planning on obviously not just pushing your wares? I'm sure. Is it a plan to
my wares? This wear. And, I'm slow. I don't get out much. I've got the mum humour is awful. I'm so sorry. Mum jokes, they're the worst.
Yeah. So, you're planning on these events, utilising the laureateship and working at promoting comics? Or?
Yeah. I'm hoping to whilst I'm there to go and meet some people, do some networking, and try and put people in touch with other people. The thing is, I'm this might not be a surprise, but I am less famous than Charlie Adler and Dave Gibbons. It's okay. I'm okay with that. But the thing is, I think they were able to sweep in and headline conferences. Do you headline a conference?
I suppose you would do.
Yeah. Whereas I'm, not quite as famous as them. So I'm more about the grassroots, putting people in touch with other people and trying to, pulling on people's sleeves and saying, hey, could you do this? And do you want to be involved with that? And the more behind the scenes stuff.
Well, to be fair, they've done that for the past 4 years. So yeah, it's a good to go a different direction anyway, isn't it?
Definitely.
So it's definitely important that way. So. So that's my
plan. It's to scheme. That's my scheme. Is to scheme.
Superb. Well, we look forward to seeing you in October in sunny Kendal.
Yeah, scheming away.
Scheming away.
I'm just imagining you like Darcy and Muttley now.
I do have a Dick Dastardly hat.
Well, there we go.
For Halloween one year. Could wear that.
Superb. Thank you very much for coming on, Hannah.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you.
Room for one lawgiver, please.
Judge Dredd. Or is it just Dredd?
Fancy seeing you here.
Catwoman, you also here for the Comic Art Festival or a stint in the ISO cubes?
Of course. I love to see my makers in action. Ah! Watch it, Greenie.
Careful, Hulk. In this town we have a saying. Once is a coincidence, twice is a booking offence.
I think he booked the events on the website.
Huh?
comicartfestival.com. It's got all the perfect information about the event.
Yeah, so's my fist. Drock, I'm out of here. Not standing around with those 4 tortoises that have just entered the building. Cowabunga, dude!
Find out all about the Lakes International Comic Art Festival and booking information at www.comicartfestival.com.
Cool. Okay, so on to sorcerers. I did have a bit of a problem with the sorcerers, I have to say. So I've perhaps not got quite as much to say about 3 and 2. 3, I've gone with The Wizard of Oz and Marvel's adaptations from the original L. Frank Baum novels. They were adapted by Eric Shanower writing and Scotty Young on the artwork, and these were perfectly timed for my eldest daughter Daisy's reading material. They did set out to adapt each of the novels, and I don't know how many there are. I think 5 ended up being produced, but they are, sumptuous. They are funny. I seem to remember, I have a vague recollection of trying to read one of the actual novels to the girls when they were younger, and it having, not the best reading experience. I mean, I think they're about 1919, the original novels. Yeah. So, props to the writer who actually really updated them, obviously got rid of a lot of the sort of chaff, and the energy that Scotty Young brought to the characters just really invigorated them. I'm not a massive Wizard of Oz fan, but Daisy loved reading them, and I would always read them after her. So it was a nice little joint experience as well, so that we both could enjoy, a true all ages series of graphic novels. Really, yeah, they're really, really good stuff.
Nice. I've never seen those actually.
They're great. If you can actually watch him doing it as well, he does the loosest possible pencils, Scotty Young, and it all comes out in the inking, and a lot of it's with a brush pen, so it's literally just one items that you can get. His really thin lines, and then he's blocking everything. It's astounding, really is astounding.
So the inking.
Yeah. So he puts the blue line on down first, but most of the detail comes out in the inking. So there's quite a few that work that way. But and he actually is one of the few artists as well that he's not working up in size. A lot of the work is actual size. Actual size. It's actually the same size as it's produced. So which there aren't a lot. There's not a lot of room for error at that sort of when you're working that way, but yeah, it's amazing. It's fantastic.
Nice. My number 3 is probably going to be a mystery. Raceline Magere from Dragonlance. A lot more people than you probably think will know of whom I speak. Did you ever come across Dragonlance in your D&D games?
Was that sort of sub-series of Dungeons & Dragons?
It was an absolute separate work of series of novels, of which...
Does ring a bell.
A Dragonlance became a setting that you could play D&D in.
Right, okay.
But the novels basically became bestsellers. They weren't just for D&D fans.
Right.
Although although it was specifically tasked to write a series of novels for a D&D setting, they basically became bestsellers in their own right. It was Laura and Tracy Hickman for TSR who kind of created the whole setting and the general sort of epic storyline. But Margaret Weiss actually back in 84 started really sort of expanding on that a lot. And those three names are Dragonlance. The world of Krynn is just a fan favourite, and it's got such a huge, expansive history of cataclysmic events and timelines to it. It's got such a world history, and we're talking about languages, family trees, the full lot. It does actually rival Middle-earth from a fan point of view as to what is out there of them. And there is huge numbers of books as well. I was very lucky earlier last year. I managed to get a pristine set of the first three collected. It was a chance eBay find, and they were absolutely pristine from another collector, but superb. But Racing was one of the original heroes of the Lance, and physically weak, but he had great sorcerer's power. And there's this great sort of power play between him and his stronger swordsman brother throughout the series. And his story arc sort of like takes him from the light path to the dark, and then everything in between. And it's him and this sort of love stroke rivalry with his brother that actually forms a large part of the back plot to what's the bigger plot is in the Dragonlance series. And I think the comics really captured the complexities of those characters really well. Every bit as good as the source books. I realise, I appreciate that from a comic point of view, it probably wasn't a bestseller or anything, although the comics in collected works are actually quite a prized thing, actually.
Right.
But the actual books themselves, huge bestsellers. Big part of the genre.
I do recognise some of the covers. I just plugged it in, so I'm sure that it was part of our definitely our reading material. I don't know if we played it, but I think we definitely read it.
They're all Elmore covers that you're probably looking at.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dragonlance Chronicles.
Covers.
Yeah, definitely. Certainly some of the characters.
Series of modules, so you could actually. Weirdly, for D&D, it was pre-generated characters, and they were the actual characters from the books.
Right. Yeah.
So you could actually play the adventure as the characters would have encountered it in the books, and gone completely different ways with it. And it's a big thing with D&D, but the comics, I thought they did a very good job.
Cool. My number 2, it's a bit of a cheat. I was really struggling with this, but there's one comic that has had lots of different magicians in it, and I've enjoyed the way they've been brought into this particular universe, and that's the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which you've muttered on one occasion. But I mean, you've got Prospero, you've got Aisha, the H. Rider character from his novel She. You've got a brilliant little text story where it's kind of a sort of H.P. Lovecraft meets Jeeves and Wooster. I think that might be in the Black Dossier. You've got Voldemort. You've got Aleister Crowley, who's not fictional, but he's in there as well. And it's such a great melting pot, but they're all so nicely slotted in. It's just, how it all pieces together and the elements, how they work together. It's great. And Prospero has become increasingly more important as the series has gone on. So I think My second magical comic nod is going to go to League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
No, great choice, and another one I'm now thinking, why didn't I think of that?
That was a very late.
The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen would have just given a plethora of answers to so many categories.
No joke. Both of I had Wizard of Oz last week, or last episode, I should say. But literally the last two Sorceress things came to me today, just by going down this kind of view of, hang on, I don't just have to think about books. I can think about, I think it was Myths and Legends basically that did it. So that's how I got to Prospero, and that's how I got to League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. But yeah.
Good job. One that sort of came to me in a flash, actually, as a literary character, the Crimson King from Dark Tower series.
Oh, yeah.
Crimson King. A.K.A. Ramabala. The Crimson King, he's part sorcerer, but he's also part force of nature, and really the total embodiment of evil. He kind of acts as a metaphor for evil throughout the whole Stephen King universe. Stephen King really does do a lot of nods here and there to link all his stories up, either through the fact that they're based in Maine, or the fact that no matter what universe or dimension he's talking about, there is a lot of little threads that run through, and the Crimson King is one of them. He kind of has. He always reminds me. I always wonder if the inspiration was Nyarlathotep from H.P. Lovecraft, in the way that he has lots of different avatars and can appear as anything.
Okay.
In fact, one of his avatars to certain people is that of Satan. In the way. But he is, in principle, the foe in the Dark Tower series, which is just an absolute recommendation. If you've not slogged through them, do so. They get better and better and better. It's a superb series, and I'm so glad he finished it. But in the Dark Tower, he wants to destroy the Dark Tower, and the Dark Tower is kind of this thing that it's a physical tower, and it holds the multiverse together. It holds reality pinned down throughout space and time, and there's beams going from the tower that span all the multiverses, and he's slowly basically just destroying each one as he goes. You're never quite sure of the motivation, but it seems to be that he thinks he can rule in whatever primordial chaotic mess is left after he's destroyed everything. But the Dark Tower, this is maybe a little bit of a cheat, but the Dark Tower comic series, again, these are ones which just buy the hardbacks because they're beautiful books and the illustrations are absolutely gorgeous. But Stephen King worked directly with Marvel, and what the books cover, the comic books, it kind of acts as like the origins to the whole thing, where the hero of the book, Roland, Deshawn is brought in, and it's all about him growing up as a gunslinger, whereas from the books we only know him as the last gunslinger. But it's fascinating to read and how it fits in, and you know that it's coming directly from Stephen King himself, this. But it actually gives the Crimson King an origin story.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting.
And it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Because on Midworld, Midworld as a setting, I guess, is Earth moved on. It's kind of a possible version of Earth in the future, but outside of space-time. There's lots of different theories, but it can also be before Earth. It's kind of a bit weird. But basically, Merlin helps the demonic Crimson Queen to gain earthly form and deceive Arthur Eld, who himself is an aspect of King Arthur, to get pregnant, and that gives birth to the Crimson King. But again, it goes a bit more into the fact that he has these different avatars and guises and is a shapeshifter as well. I think in the book, there's lots of things that he's behind or he's seen, but he comes into the books very late on, and he's actually like a grey-haired old man that actually stands in the tower himself, just putting grenades down, Roland as he's trying to shoot them down. But I just think it's not a direct adaptation. It's something more than that. It's adding to the story from the originator himself, and just to give a real backstory to this just incredibly important character in the books. I think the only other thing I can say on this is, for God's sake, ignore who is in it. Still, do not watch the film. A 1 hour 40 film tries to distill.
Oh, it's a shame, isn't it? I did read the
foot of my bookshelf.
Yeah,
it's awful. But anyway,
I'm a big Stephen King fan, so I've read a lot of his stuff, and it did seem to be the sort of genre popping. It gets mentioned a lot, and I've got lots of friends who have really raved about it. I've read the first 2, but I do have to say I did find them, like you said, I did find them a struggle, which is unusual.
There is a
for a Stephen King book. Yeah,
but once you get past the third, well, the third is bizarre. Really, as you said, genre popping. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
And when you start getting to like the Walls of Kala, it just explodes. There is just too much going on, but there is just too much to grab and take all in your own mind, and then he appears in it himself.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Sounds like Grant Morrison in Animal Man. So my number 1 sorceress best literary adapted character. It's almost guaranteed. There's always something from this wheelhouse whenever I talk. I am entirely predictable. As I mentioned earlier, I was struggling with this section until I realised that I could include really mythology or folklore. My number 1 best adapted literary character is the Baba Yaga, the character from Russian folklore, who's very important to the Hellboy comic, and indeed has appeared in various titles in the Mignolaverse. Fantastic. I mean, she's taken literally from Russian folklore. So she has her wooden legs. She flies round in a flying mortar and pestle, and she lives in a chicken-legged house. And that's exactly as she appears in the comic. Particularly nasty and vindictive. She is the queen of witches, with a penchant for counting cutlery and holding a grudge. There's a very early short story, I think, where she first appears in the Hellboy mythos, and Hellboy is kind of like a bit of a random encounter with her, really. But she's introduced, and, well, in this early tale, Hellboy shoots her eye out, which becomes quite the plot point later on in the series. Used very well, used to introduce other characters and situations, particularly important for the beginning of the end of Hellboy, really, in the Wild Hunt part of the series. We also get a few other characters from Russian mythology in that section as well. We're introduced to Perun, who I think he's kind of like a kind of Odin, Zeus of Russian mythology. He's the storm god aspect of that folklore. We also get Koschei the Deathless, who gets his own series later on after this section of the Hellboy. I know that, I mean, are we less than a month away from, we're pretty much a month away from the Hellboy movie, the new reboot of the Hellboy movie. And I think the Wild Hunt aspect of the books is part of the adaptation. And I know in the first teaser trailer, I've kind of held off watching the trailers now. I think once I've watched it and I've got excited, and you've kind of put your mind at rest that they're going to do a really good job at it, then I don't really want that many spoilers. But I remember seeing the chicken-legged house in the first, I think, teaser trailer, and I've read that the Wild Hunt's quite important.
I didn't see it.
Sorry?
I might have seen a different trailer then, but I stopped after the first one I watched again, but I didn't see the chicken leg.
I think, did you see the one with kind of like the bat creature in the wrestling ring?
Oh, yes.
It's in that one.
Okay.
Sure.
Right.
I think I did go through and do the old pause. You've got me worried I've just been imagining that now, but I'm pretty sure it was there. But yeah, done brilliantly, drawn brilliantly by Mignola and Figueiredo, who did the last sort of 3 runs of Hellboy before he came back in Hellboy in Hell. Brilliant, sinister, nasty, horrible, beguiling.
Oh God, I honestly didn't realise that she was going to be in the next one. Oh, that is cool actually, because I like those stories.
I think so. I mean, like I say, I've stopped watching the trailers, but there were definitely hints in the first one I saw. And if they are doing the Wild Hunt, I think I can't really see them doing it without her, really.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she's appeared in a few other series as well. She's in Kaiju Max, the latest season of Kaiju Max, which is the kind of well, it's not all massive monsters on an island prison.
Yeah.
The latest season, it's all female monsters, so they're basically doing a kind of Orange is the New Black, but with kaiju monsters, and one of them on the island is Baba Yaga and her chicken-legged house. So brilliant. She gets around.
There was a spate of horror films as well that were all based around her myth.
Oh, really?
As well. Yeah. Just look up. Oh, not long ago.
Oh, right.
Just look on IMDb. Actually, put it in as a character title.
Not heard of those.
There's quite a few. Don't Knock Twice. There is one called Baba Yaga. There was a couple I know that I sort of looked at and started watching and then stopped watching because they were just really straight to DVD rubbish. But there was one I did see that was quite good. I'll have to have a look at that one.
Cool. There's one from 1973. The Devil Within. No, The Devil Witch from 1973. Oh, it looks like one of those Italian horror films from the 70s.
And there's a Russian one coming out this year.
Ooh.
Baba Yaga, Terror of the Dark Forest. Yeah,
brilliant.
Standard horror trope. Cool.
Yeah.
Right, Literary Sorcerer. My number one. I think we kind of. Well, I you obviously mentioned another from the Conan universe, but Thothamon, greatest sorcerer of Stygia in the Hyborian Age.
Mm-hmm.
He was originally in the Phoenix and the Sword books, and that kind of charted his sort of ascent from slave to the powerful all-conquering sorcerer that he is, with the Serpent Ring of Set, which is the important artifact that he owns.
Mm-hmm.
It was a major draw for me in the comics, really. It was, and in the books, really. It's the first intersection of Howard's Hyborian Age and the Cthulhu mythos as well.
Ooh.
Because he was in a writers' group with Lovecraft.
Yeah.
And Howard as well. And can't remember. There was a few of them in there. August Earth wasn't. But the Egyptian god Set in the Cthulhu mythos is basically one of the great old ones. And then
okay.
that's why he brought in this Ring of Set into his stories as a kind of link through.
Right.
But there's always been a sort of a link, hasn't there, between Conan and the mythos. There is lots of nods here and there. But the Serpent Ring itself then later on makes an appearance in a Lovecraft story.
Ah, cool.
that was a way for them both to give a nod to the other one and show that it's a shared timeline of history as such.
Yeah.
But I thought he's been in the comics a few times, but he actually got his own origin story in the Book of Thoth. And I quite like it when the comics actually add something to what was there before, and I quite appreciate when you get a literary character and then they have the chance to expand it. Yeah. Because he wasn't there in the book so much, but he's really important because he is basically in the Conan film, the 1984 one. He is what Thulsa Doom is based on.
Right.
That's what the director actually took Thotham on and made him Thulsa Doom.
Right.
Hence all the serpent imagery and everything.
Yeah, they just thought that was a better name, did they?
Well, yes, and that was exactly it. A better name, because in Conan the Destroyer, there is a character, a minor character, where they named him Thothamon, because they liked that name, but not enough for the main guy. So the film's a little out of anyway. But this is for literary adaptation. That was my number one.
Yeah. Do you know, I've always been intrigued by the connection between Robert E. Howard and H.P. Lovecraft, partly because I think the first time I read it, I mean, I first read my Conan books. They were the, I think, is it the Arrow or Lancer series of sort of paperbacks? I think the kind of 70s, they had Frazetta covers.
Yes, yeah.
The Howard stories were mixed in with stories by Lynn Carter and Els Brog de Camp as well. So I didn't realise at the time, and I just loved all the stories. So I wasn't particularly aware which were Howard and which weren't. But then you would read in the introductions and you'd read around the subject later on. But I wasn't really aware of H.P. Lovecraft when I was reading my Conan books. And then later on, when I did read the Cthulhu books, there was thought to be this connection. But I think the series that I'd read, a lot of the more obvious nods had been edited out, because by the time I was reading them, they were kind of like in the 70s. So I think by then the properties had already started to sort of become separated. So I do remember back, I couldn't find the obvious nods. You could find, I think Cthulhu actually doesn't he get mentioned in a Conan story at one point? Or there's a recognisable old god, is it? Or
there is. Yeah. I'm sure there is. And then
but I remember going back and I couldn't find it. And I think it's because I just read it too late, essentially. They might have, I think they can probably reinstall it now in various territories, because a lot of this is in the public domain now, Howard and H.P. Lovecraft. But I remember when I was intrigued. Yeah, I mean, things like
I remember things like Lovecraft, an ideas man, not the greatest writer, but he does actually, when he wants to explain something, he always used the phrase Stygian.
Yeah. But
he also described, when he wanted to say something was old, he would describe it of like being prehistory or Hyperborean, and it again, that was the link for me. But I'm pretty sure that there is somewhere, and I think, is it Lovecraft or maybe one of his other people that wrote for the mythos, but they were kind of listing sort of all the different avatars that Nyarlathotep could take. And again, there was one of those as an obvious reference to somebody in the Conan story. There are only little nods here and there, but
he definitely takes a page out of Lovecraft's book in The Tower of the Elephant when he's describing the alien sort of monster that's at the summit. The way, and certainly the place it came from that this sorcerer stole this creature from. It's got the same sort of nebulous descriptive language, isn't it, that Lovecraft uses. You never really get a handle on what these things look like.
Is it one of those? Did he use like Lovecraftian phrases? I think as well, like impossible angles.
Yeah, something like
that. It's so throwaway. It's just so you can't get your head around this.
Yeah. the actual figure that is there is described, but I think its universe and the rest of its sort of brethren isn't. That's what I remember anyway. But brilliant, cool. Okay. Oh, so we get to vote again. So
I'd forgotten about that aspect again.
Right. So, I went first. Let's have a look. So, do I vote sword or sorcery? I think in this case, I'm going to go sword because so many of my artistic heroes were involved in the sword section. Shakin, Simonson, Alex Toth. You mentioned Matt Wagner on Zorro as well. P. Craig Russell. Yeah, definitely. I'm going for sword this round.
Well, I'm going to have to go for sword as well. And that's based purely on I can't ever not vote for Elric. And Elric technically is sword and sorcery all rolled up into one, as he's got quite a good sideline in summoning demons. But yeah, again, John Carter, and then you reminded me of Zorro, which just felt like it came out of nowhere as an iconic. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to go for sword as well.
Brilliant. Right, now the last round. I haven't, considering how long we've been arranging this, and unbeknownst to the listener, how long we've been recording this. It might seamlessly feel like we've just been doing this in one session, but it's actually 3, dear listener. I've only got 2, so if you for best screen adaptation, I really struggle on this. So as happened in the past, maybe one of yours will spark something in me. But if you want to start on swords again for best screen adaptation, we'll see where it leads us.
Okay, cool. My number 3 choice was Afro Samurai.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one.
I picked up.
That's just changed everything.
Oh, was it? You've got one.
Can't believe I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I forgot it. Unbelievable.
I picked up the Afro Samurai Resurrection from HMV. I think it was definitely on sale anyway. And Alison was picking up a huge batch of Studio Ghibli stuff. But I fancied a bit of sort of anime violence, should we say. So I just picked that up because it looked quite cool. And it really, the animation on it was just top notch. Really, really distinct style. And yeah, Samuel Jackson and Lucy Liu on voice work duties. And it had a really good crunchy hip hop soundtrack to it as well, which I did appreciate. And it was from that I actually sought out the original manga stuff from Takashi Okazaki. And I realised that the artwork was basically the same. I still haven't actually figured out whether or not it's just a bunch of studio artists copying the original, or whether or not he was heading the studio or he was doing it himself. I have no idea. Like I said, I've only got a few comics and I've got the DVD, and that's the extent of my Afro Samurai knowledge. But it was just a cool story. Sort of sci-fi feudal Japan, and you've got this great sort of device around about numbered headbands that determine the greatest swordsman. So you've got the number 1 headband, who is the greatest swordsman, and he can only be challenged by the wearer of the number 2 headband.
Okay.
But the wearer of the number 2 headband can be challenged by anyone. So if you've got to the spot of number 2, everyone is after you. But basically, Afro sees his number 1 headband wearing father killed by the number 2 headband wearer, Justice. So he vows to grow up to sort of learn how to fight, become number 2, so he can challenge Justice and get revenge for his father. It gets a bit more complicated after that. But it was just cool because it was a nice little bit of anime, and I hadn't seen anything so original for a long time. So It's got a little nice space on my shelf, that DVD.
Do you know, that has been it has been referenced and recommended to me on numerous times. I have got a DVD, but I haven't watched it yet, so I feel bad.
Worth it.
But
like I said, it's got a really cool soundtrack.
Yeah, I think I've watched a bit in like around at mates' houses, but I haven't sort of watched the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, it looked. I think the titles as well as what I'm thinking of now. Okay, my number 3, because I've got 3 now, is John Carter the movie, the much maligned John Carter the movie.
Yes.
Very misunderstood. 2012. It was directed by Andrew Stanton, I think, who was before John Carter known for directing. He was a Pixar director, so I think he'd done possibly Finding Nemo, I think. It was going to be and should have been called John Carter of Mars. I think that would have helped a great deal.
Yeah.
I think it was mostly misunderstood because people didn't really know that there was a hero called John Carter. Unlike Edgar Rice Burroughs' other hero, Tarzan, John Carter has always been the kind of, the poor younger brother to Tarzan. He's just not had the outings, hasn't had the TV shows. He's even his comics, really. He did have a 70s run, didn't he, at Marvel, but that was mixed up so much within that big barbarian boom at the time that so many of those characters got lost because they all kind of looked the same. They all got the same Marvel treatment. Post Conan, the names would generally just sort of Thongar and Brack Macmorn, King Cull. They just all
merged into
get
one
lost.
after a while.
Yeah, and poor old John Carter, I think, got lost in the mix. But I mean, as you mentioned earlier, the cavalryman who mysteriously, well, he's not. He ends up on Mars, doesn't he? He ends up with powers, and he's on Mars for a long time after that as well. He's on there for about 13 books, so you get a lot of the landscape and the different areas of Mars. In the film, it concentrates. I think it's a war between the two factions, isn't it? The visuals are great. We get to see the Barsoomians. Is that right?
They're all Barsoomians.
That's right.
I think the Tharks, which are
I'm thinking of the Tharks,
the tribal green Martians.
Right.
I thought the Tharks were spot on.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thought they did really well. And then it's the city of Helia versus Sangan Nation. That's what it's kind of plays around with mostly. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of why it's one of those pub quiz facts. I think that it was the biggest loss of Marvel Studios, or it was the biggest loss-making film of all time. But that's actually not true.
No,
I think it even made its money back through DVD sales.
Yeah,
but the problem was a huge amount of budget was spent on advertising, and we're talking tens of millions here, which they completely screwed up. Its launch was going to have a huge long advert in the Super Bowl, which is big money. And what happened was that there was a cock up at one end, and they had to, in the end, they put together something like a minute advert or even longer, and then it was cut down horrendously. So as a last minute sort of hatchet job, they tried to get an advert that lasted only 30 seconds, and it didn't show anything of what would actually interest any of the people that would have gone to see that film.
Right.
It should have been the new Star Wars in my mind. It was well thought out. They'd modernised it extremely well. They were sympathetic to characters, and the special effects, which is superb. I thought.
Yeah.
I just love that film, and I know that I'm in so much of a minority, but people bash things that are seen to have been a failure sometimes without actually sitting back and watching it and deciding for yourself. I think
exactly. I think a lot of people decided not to go and see that film because they'd been told it was a flop.
Yes.
And
It's one of those weird social media waves of discontent after it, which the number of people complaining should have meant that they had better box office figures if all those people had gone to see the film to be that disappointed.
Yeah.
So that didn't add up either. But it was just a huge mistake from an advertising point of view. And like you said, they dropped the of Mars. Yeah. Which instantly tells people this is a science fiction thing.
Yeah.
From some of the adverts, some people just thought it was like a swords and sandals type fantasy film, which might not appeal to some people.
Yeah. Or a Western if you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
The production design was amazing. It had that lovely pulp sensibility and quality to it. We've watched it multiple times. I don't think it's quite a Princess Bride, but it's certainly one that shares similarities in terms of how difficult it was, to sell. I mean, that they had difficulty selling. It shouldn't have been a difficult film to sell because it's a lot clearer than The Princess Bride was. But that was its downfall. So that's a shame.
If you're interested, I can't remember what it's called, but there is an entire documentary all about the failure of John Carter.
Oh, right.
Which is quite good. Right, number twos then. My number two, Leonidas from 300.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's tenuous, this one. But, you know what? No, it's okay. I got my categories mixed up. This is screen choice, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is adapted from a comic. That's fine. Okay. 300 was, of course, the Frank Miller's graphic novel, the same name, giving a fictional account of the Battle of Thermopylae, I think it's pronounced, when just 300 Spartans were supposed to have been under the command of King Leonidas and defend against an entire Persian invasion force. The graphic novel was a huge seller and hit mainstream audiences well before even the film came out, although that kind of gave it a massive boost again. Mm-hmm. Miller's art, of course, is very distinctive, and he went for the same sort of ultra-stylized look that he did for Sin City. Lynn Varley added a bit more sort of consistent colouring to it, though, but they were still muted in contrast to the stark red of the cloaks or the gore, which they carried through to the film just like they did for Sin City. I just thought that was superbly done. And I know a lot of people don't like it because they're not sure if they're watching a cartoon or an animated film. I think, again, I have a few friends that, because they've never read Sin City, didn't like the film because they just thought it was being arty for art's sake.
Yeah.
Like, no, this is the graphic novel, and it's important that it looks like that because it's got like feel to it. But
yes, I loved Sin City. I know, I mean, brief diversion. I think my problem with it, they hadn't quite got the movie making aspect in terms of it being computer generated. It was very early, so we had a lot of computer generated backgrounds or a lot of fake backgrounds. But then there's that scene where you've got the policeman walking down the hall. And you can tell they're not walking down the hall; they're walking on the spot.
Yeah,
and it's bits like that. that you can understand why they've done it, and they're working through things, and it's great. And overall, it looks fantastic. The casting's great, and there's lots I like about it. And the second one's even better. There's a whole sequence in the car, which is great. But those are the bits that pull you out.
A little bit, yeah. It's exactly what my brother-in-law said, and he's the biggest sort of Miller fan that I know.
Yeah.
So he's got the same criticisms whilst still loving the film still.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's a kind of dual thing, but and I have to again put my hand up. Do you know, everyone has these weird gaps in their collection and in their viewing, but do you know I haven't read or seen 300?
Oh, it's worth it, definitely. Yeah.
It's just there are just some weird gaps.
And I have to say, I don't prefer book over film at all, either way. I think they're both brilliant. But just like Sin City, you have to read the book first, purely so you can just see how they've recreated certain frames absolutely perfectly, and how they got there in a live action sense is really clever. There's some, like just like when they pull back from like a pile of bodies or something, and you'll suddenly realise like that is the exact frame from the book.
Yes.
So they've kind of worked backwards to get all the action to make that exact. And yeah, it's just clever. But Gerard Butler, I thought, was just spot on casting. He's absolutely spot on for playing Leonidas. And I know that himself and a lot of the Spartans were given a little hand with the battle ripped bodies that they have through a little bit of makeup and even a little bit of CGI, which you can't blame them for. But yeah, it's a good film. Yeah, I definitely recommend it if you haven't seen it. That's well worth a watch.
Yeah, do you know? There's a few. I suppose they'll come out eventually, but I mean, I can't believe really that I still haven't read it this long ago. I was just checking when it came out, because a lot of the time I can blame these gaps on my kids. The biggest gap in my reading and viewing collection was basically when they were born, and you just didn't have the chance to do anything, didn't have the chance to go to the comic shop or the pictures or anything like that. But it came out in '98, so I can't use that.
Wow, I would never have guessed it was that old.
98, yeah. And they've just done a sequel, haven't they? Dark Horse. I think they've just done a 300 sequel that's come out. Yes. I don't know if it's even been completed yet. Excuse me.
I read about it a while ago, but that's about it.
This is a bit of a cheat because it's a repeat, which is supposed to be against the rules. But because I was having such a hard time.
No, I've got one coming up.
And to be honest, yeah, we're all about cheating as long as we've got some content, let's face it. So my number 2 is the Solomon Kane movie from 2009, starring James Purfoy as the Puritan swordsman. What the movie was he was a mercenary of Queen Elizabeth I, fighting Spaniards in Africa, and he meets, he meet this sort of mysterious sorcerer who tells Solomon Kane he's bound for hell, and he renounces violence to atone for his past sins, because in the you don't get as much background as you need sometimes in the Howard books, but in this one I think he's set up as somebody who is a sinner seeking redemption in the movie, and then he renounces violence, tries to seek out redemption, and then a sorcerer kidnaps a Puritan girl and brutally slays her family before his eyes, forcing Solomon to take up arms and return to his violent ways once more to rescue her. But it's really nicely done. I really enjoyed it. I don't think it was particularly well received at the time. I don't think it's particularly well received now, but he was great in it, and the rest of the cast were great. There was plenty of supernaturalness to it, which sometimes makes the difference of it being a genre piece or just a more of a historical epic. But there was definitely a nice bit of sorcerous zombiness in there.
I know this is a bit odd, but one of the things that I like about the film, there's some great locations in it.
Yeah.
And we were trying to look them up at one point, thinking like, oh, yeah, must go to that house sometime. That looks really nice. But they're actually all over the place.
Right.
But yeah, it's got some. But I think you have to mention the Cornish accent's good as well.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think now. Oh, I looked it up last time I was watching it. He's not Cornish, is he, Purfoy?
Purfoy. I've got him up on the screen now. Let's have a look. Somerset.
Right, there you go. I'm trying to remember actually. What is Solomon Kane's accent supposed to be? Was it supposed to be? I was thinking then, is it supposed to be Devon?
Yeah, was it? I can't remember.
Because the weird thing was, when we watched that film, we only knew Purfoy from some serial killer series with Kevin Bacon.
Oh yes, I remember that.
So we thought, for some reason, we were under the impression he was an American doing an English accent, and then
it is funny the first time you see somebody, isn't it? That
yeah.
I can't remember what that was called now, but I do remember. Yeah, he was. Oh no, I can't remember what it was. But shout out to, it's not really a genre show, but he's also in Hap and Leonard. Did you watch Hap and Leonard?
No.
It's an adaptation of a series by Joe R. Lansdale, and it's described as it's set in the sort of deep south, sort of swampland, sort of Georgia way. What do they call it now? Swamp noir. Call it Swamp Noir. Yeah, it's adaptation of I think 3 books. They did 3 series. It was available on, it still is available, I think, on Amazon Prime. But it was a really good adaptation of Joe R. Lansdale's a classic kind of genre guy, and it had Michael Kenneth Williams from The Wire as the other of the pair. But yeah. That's one to look out for you. Yeah, definitely.
Swamp Noir, that's a genre that I haven't covered yet. Can I find Swamp Noir comics to do Mike's utterings on?
It sums it up brilliant, because it's essentially a crime series, but the locale, like you were talking about with Solomon Kane, it's got what you start to think are the usual characters involved in those places, but of course it takes twists and turns, and yeah, very well done.
Well, I've got it.
Yeah.
Right, my number one feels a bit cheaty as well. Although it's Deadpool, and I haven't had Deadpool yet.
Oh, okay.
I had.
Yeah, that's cheating.
I had Deathstroke earlier. Yeah, there's not a lot, I guess to say about Deadpool. Yeah, I mean, the sword playing Deadpool is just recreated from the comics so well.
Yeah.
Thanks to the millions and millions of dollars of CGI that they're able to spend on it. But I mean, the thing I probably wanted to mention was that work began on the Deadpool movie. In earnest with Ryan Reynolds, because he was the big pusher for it, 5 years before he played Weapon 11 in X-Men. He was trying for it 5 years before.
Really? Yeah. Wolverine Origin, was that the first?
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, Wolverine Origin, yes. And it's kind of like this weird thing, like, is that the origin of Deadpool? Is it not? Because it's not called Deadpool. But yeah, Ryan Reynolds was on a personal crusade to get this done. So hats off to him. And much of the development as well. I mean, it wasn't just pushed on with him; it was just the fans as well did such a huge amount for this. But I remember, because it wasn't signed at the point. Do you remember the first non-trailer that was leaked in inverted commas?
Yeah.
And it was the car chase scene, yeah?
Yeah.
And it didn't even have a lot of the CGI finished.
It was on the... That was leaked in inverted commas, and it was shortly after that that Fox actually picked it up to actually agree to distribution. Because it was just ridiculous. I mean, the amount of money that they must have spent getting that stuff made anyway. But it's one of these things where I've no idea whether this is just a myth or not. But it's still reported to be the way it happened. Yeah.
But I think what it did do was it gave enough of a fan push to secure the hard R rating. If they'd have not done it that way, I think it wouldn't have been the same. It would have they would have been told by studios, no, it's going to be a 15 because it's untested.
Yeah.
And, the most they'll give a superhero film is a 15. And even then, they don't like it. They like a 12A.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I like. The other thing was that I just love in Deadpool 2, where he's doing the wall of swords, whilst Cable is firing directly at him almost at point blank range, and he's trying to deflect the bullets, and he just fails completely. But I like that as the nod to Wolverine Origins, when he walks out the elevator at the diamond dealer.
Oh yeah.
Same thing. He does the whirling dervish sword play, but he does actually deflect the bullets. So I quite like the fact that they did the nod there. X-Men Origins Wolverine. Is that the name of it? Is that the name of the film?
Okay, it probably is. Yeah.
So Deadpool wins it as my best adapted swordsman.
It is funny that it's one of those films that has its own origin story as well, isn't it, Deadpool? But I think it's also one of those situations where ultimately everybody's happy, because I can almost believe that the studio encouraged the leak, if you know what I mean. It's one of those situations where I think he was enough of a unknown figure really to the outside world, hugely famous in comics but not really known outside of comics, enough to sort of worry the executives. The fact that then on top of that you've got this violence and comedic aspect to a superhero film that just hadn't been done before, and they hadn't really got anything to rely on to make a decision for studio executive. They're probably always going to say no, but having it released just took the decision out of their hands, because I think you can almost imagine Ryan Reynolds or the SFX guys just going, look, we'll prove it to you. All you've got to do is release that, and you'll have your answer tomorrow, because enough people will make their views known that you won't have to make the decision. It's going to be a no-brainer. And
I genuinely don't believe we'll ever find out the absolute truth.
No.
But I don't care, because it worked.
I'm almost surprised it's not happened since as well, really, or that you don't see more. I mean, there have been a few, but with even smaller characters. I remember seeing a test for the Goon, Eric Powell's Goon, which Finch, isn't it, the director? Did Seven.
David Fincher.
I think he was a big supporter of it, and I think he'd been involved and he was helping out, and hopefully that might come about. But that was great as well, and a similar character in a sense to to Deadpool in the fact that you've got ultra-violence mixed with comedy and a lot more sort of heartbreak and pathos as well with the Goon. But just a little bit too small, unfortunately. Okay, for anybody who knows me, this is a no-brainer and technically breaks the best screen adaptation, but I don't care because he is the mightiest swordsman ever. And when anybody asks me my favourite TV show, I always say Samurai Jack. So technically, I know he's not an adaptation, but let's just say best screen swordsman. And Genndy Tartakovsky's creation from, when was the early 2000s? Looks like 2001. Can you believe it? I remember walking through, this was back in the day, so this was when the girls were tiny. Me and the missus, we didn't have Sky TV, so we didn't know what Cartoon Network was. Didn't have a clue. And I was at the in-laws. I think we'd have been down there with Daisy, and they'd have had Cartoon Network on for her. And I walked through the living room. Cartoon Network was still on, and there was an episode of Samurai Jack on, and it would have been might have been season 2 or 3, so it would have been going for a few years. But it was when Samurai Jack was fighting a ninja in a kind of an old abandoned building, but the fight scene was purely in shades of black and white, with no tone involved at all. And they would really go to town on a fight sequence. It would be very long. I mean, it could be, like as out of a 20-minute episode, you could have a 6-minute fight. And I remember just being stopped in my tracks, sitting down, and that was it. From then on, until I got Sky TV myself, I used to have a video that I would carry around to people's houses that I thought might have Sky TV. And when they weren't around, sometimes like covertly, I'd shove the video into their machine, put it onto Cartoon Network, and I knew, even though I didn't have it, I knew when he was on. I think I caught a marathon at my sister's house once, and then me and the girls would watch them endlessly when we were back home. I think we had a couple of tapes with Powerpuff Girls and Samurai Jack. So certain episodes we've seen over and over, and then they became available on DVD. And even though they were Region 2, I got the whole set of the DVDs. And it's definitely my go-to feel-good TV show. It's so inspirational. I mean, for people who've not seen it, it is. It's a show about. It's a samurai. In the distant past, he's a Japanese samurai who is pitted against the evil Aku, the shape-changing master of evil, and he's enslaved his father and his city and the countryside, and Samurai Jack is wailing against Aku, and Aku flings him into the future. And Samurai Jack spends the rest of the series fighting to go back in time to save his family and his town. So it's a real mix of different areas and different genres. We end up with aquatic worlds, we end up in Egyptian cities, zombies, westerns, giant robots. There's absolutely everything in any episode. Recurring characters like the Scotsman. Sometimes, I mean, the backgrounds are fantastically painted very simply, sometimes swashes of watercolor, very flat graphic characters in the foreground, but it's just breathtaking in its visuals and its storytelling. Sometimes very decompressed. He can be just walking through the countryside for minutes and not meeting anybody, but it's absolutely compelling. So yeah, I don't care if it's not an adaptation or not, but Samurai Jack's the best thing that's ever been made ever, okay?
I've never seen it. I've seen adverts. I've never actually seen an episode. But I don't think it's the Cartoon Network. I don't think it's one I can get. It's not I think it's a subscribed cartoons.
They did have it.
Sky.
They had it on Netflix briefly. And it might have been actually, when you used to be able to get American Netflix.
Oh,
just that brief time.
Yes. He says not sure if he's legally allowed to say yes. I'm aware of it.
They closed the back door, and it wasn't that difficult, I don't think, at the time. I think you literally just went to the American website or something. It wasn't.
Well, it was that easy, actually.
But for a time you could get it on Netflix, and I've got all of the DVDs. So I mean, because I couldn't play them on, I've just ended up ripping them. So I just play them that way. They did after a couple of years ago. They completed the series. There were 4 seasons, and then you were left obviously on the fact that they hadn't managed to get back in time. So they did a season. I think it was about another 10 episodes in 2017, which we're still stunning. Slightly different animation techniques by then, of course, because it was 10 years after the last episode, I think, or something like that. But yeah, still wonderfully put together. And Genndy Tartakovsky now, he's the mastermind behind the Hotel Transylvania movies.
Oh, right, okay.
Which have been, stunningly, I think, successful. They've done wonders for. I don't know, is it Universal? I don't know who's the studio, but so much so they've just done 3, and I think they want a 4th. So obviously still doing wonders, and they are great. They are.
Yes, seen those.
Yeah, genius.
Right. So is that's all the Screen Swordsman then? So if we go on to screen choice for sorcery, is it me first?
Yeah, I am going. Hopefully your third will kickstart like the last one.
Okay, the third one I had down was Ra's al Ghul, and I should qualify that. I'm actually talking about Alexander Siddig in the Gotham TV series, rather than Liam Neeson in the Dark Knight series of films. And this is only because I think the Gotham TV series has had the time to introduce a character in really slowly as the architect behind several series worth of plots and challenges to Jim Gordon. Mm-hmm. And just have the character to bring the time to bring the character in more in line with the comics, with that creative space they need, just to show how he's got faith in his cause and his moral ambiguity that goes with that, and it means he just isn't like a formulaic 2-dimensional bad guy like he came across a little bit in the movies. He gets fleshed out a lot more, and his motives are really complex, and he genuinely comes across as unpredictable for Bruce Gordon and the viewer even, to predict what he's going to do and what his actual end goal is, rather than what he's just currently plotting. And I think Gotham, I like the fact that the TV series is grounded a little bit more in reality, so that when Ra's al Ghul and the magic of the Lazarus Pits comes in, it's more impactful because it's within that little bubble of the Gotham TV series. It's the first time magic is truly it comes into it it is truly something unexplained and it's magic.
Right.
And I think that just made it have a bit more impact. It's only the start of bringing magic into the Gotham storyline, and it's only the start of them fleshing out Ra's al Ghul. But I just think they're doing it right, and it's on the right track for now. I think I'm only 6 episodes behind. That's all.
Oh, okay.
I've got 6 to watch to finish it. So yeah, I just think it's going really well.
Brilliant. We did watch. I think we watched the first 2 seasons of Gotham, but it got lost in the mix in terms of what was available at the time, because I think also it was one I was watching.
Explosion, wasn't there, of DC stuff coming out? Yeah.
And it was because I was watching it with the girls, so a lot of the time as well, if they would rather be watching something else, then they just go, "Oh no, I'm not going to watch that. I'm watching this," and then it's not really come back into the mix. But with it being on streaming services now as well, we might be able to get back and catch up with that. Right, it's not jogged anything for me, so you better go on to number 2.
Okay. I've got Loki.
Ooh.
Now our household recently rewatched. Oh, I thought you were going to get that yourself as you were going through Myth and Legend, but
unbelievable. What an idiot.
We went through all the Marvel Thor films in order recently, and that was mainly because we fancied watching Ragnarok again.
Yeah.
So we just thought, right, watch everything. And you realise that they are really bloody good blockbusters.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Ignoring Marvel, ignoring comics, whatever, they are just really well done movies.
Yeah.
They're not my favourite Marvel movies, although Ragnarok is now, actually. But they're just so well done. And as a cinematic translation of the source material, yes, they strayed a little. And I think, well, we've discussed before, they never seemed comfortable with the magical aspect of Asgard. It was always high tech. And there's a couple of things, where they strayed, but we could do an entire episode again on where the Thor movies strayed. But you've got to, with these films, you've got to draw a line. You've got to make it, accessible to people. And the one thing that struck me is Tom Hiddleston's portrayal of Loki. I think is going to be the definitive one. When I read Thor comics now, even if the resemblance isn't there, I realise that I've actually got Hiddleston's voice in my head when I'm reading Loki, and I don't think that's happened particularly with anything else I can think of. And I think the recent Marvel comics now try and align a little bit. I've noticed reading newish Thor stuff that it's as if they're trying to align with the Marvel Cinematic Universe a little bit with characters. The resemblance is becoming more between quite a few of the actors and the comics. Yeah. And speech patterns merging a little bit between... Or am I imagining that?
No.
That was genuinely a question.
No. What I find frustrating about the whole thing, though, is I kind of want it all or nothing, and I can't quite understand which bits they pick and choose. So, yeah, Tom Hiddleston's Loki, fine. But then Elektra from the TV show? Why? So... And then you've got obvious bits going on that they stick to their guns over. So you've got these big movies coming out. You've got Thor Ragnarok coming out. And at the time, you've got Jane Foster as Thor, which was great and I loved and I've got no problem with. But I don't quite understand which bits you're going to pick and choose, and why some things have to come over from the movies at all, really. The comics are the source material. I'd kind of want them to stick to their guns and have the confidence to show the audience where the characters came from and what they've been changed into. And if you want to read the comics, you don't have to read something you've just seen at the pictures, really. So I find it all a bit frustrating.
I really wasn't sure if I was imagining it or not. It's just
no there's a lot.
You think like, oh, Are they trying to do an adaptation of the film? It's like, oh no, this is a new story.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, wow, that really does look like so and so from the film. And
well, Jessica Jones, the Jessica Jones character now, the attitude, she was always. Obviously they based the TV show on the character, so they're not incredibly different, and they haven't. I think with Jessica Jones actually turned her sort of like dark haired and started to make her look like Christine Ritter. But there are elements you can see that they've chosen to put in the series that have definitely origins from the show.
Right. Now you just mentioned one where I can give that as a definite example, because there are some Jessica Jones graphic novels where the cover art really is from the TV series.
Yeah, exactly.
Not the content, but the cover art is. I guess, okay, that's fine. That'll be instant recognition. Maybe it's the stuff that they released right after the series to try and get people to pick up the actual original comics. Maybe. I
think it definitely happens. I mean, this ties in really with my second one, really, which, I mean, I put Doctor Strange down. Kind of lazy thinking in the sense that what else? I couldn't really think of anything else. I think partly, though, because it was a genuine magic using hero. And I love the Thor movies, and some of them are some of my favourites, actually, in the MCU. The first one's sort of so Shakespearean and mythic and obviously heroic that I really, really like the first one. It took me a while to get round the whole it's not magic, it's just a technology so far advanced that we don't understand it and it appears magic. Yeah. But then by the time we got to the second one, Dark World, and the Dark Elves are flying around in spaceships, that definite move at this point of they're not Asgardians anymore, they're not gods, they are aliens. That seemed to be a very conscious move for the MCU. That and really with Thor meeting up with the Guardians of the Galaxy and going to other planets in Ragnarok, it fits completely, and I love them and they're great. But it has lost that magical element, really, that made me not think of him, really. Even Loki, with his tricksterish, appearance changing, you do get the feeling he's got some sort of image inducer in his pocket rather than casting a spell. But even in Doctor Strange, they couldn't quite bring themselves to say it was magic. They bring in this analogy of sort of code, isn't it? Or like understanding the program that reality is built on. So again, there's a definite divide between Marvel and DC, I think, in the sense that, I mean, and quite rightly so, the Marvel universe was pretty much built up by a core number of creators. Principally, you could argue Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby loved science. He was very well read on science. He had, his studio was full of magazines, and he built most of the Marvel universe on ideas of, say, genetic, mutation with the X-Men. Radiation was at the foundation of lots of those origins, whereas DC heroes still have the storybook origins that children's literature was built on for years before that, and they have no problems actually with magic. Of course, the comic universes have both, but it seems cinematically the Marvel universe doesn't really want, their very first hero of the MCU was Iron Man, and it does seem that at the heart of every threat or hero is technology ultimately.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I had a problem. I mean, I enjoyed Doctor Strange. He's not particularly one of my favourites.
He's not one of mine either, actually.
No. So I kind of felt a bit, my faith's not in it. I much prefer the Thor movies, but the Thor movies don't feel like, and you're probably right. They are magic users still. I think they just did a very good job of disguising it enough to make me forget they were, I suppose.
Again, with Strange as well. It was the one adaptation you'd have thought they'd have no problem with just saying, yeah, magic, deal with it. But then I quite liked in the movie when he conjures up something. It's almost like as he's doing the arm waving, and it's almost like he's bringing up code in front of him.
Yeah,
and he's swiping runes across the circle and things, and it almost feels like you're watching somebody hack reality. Yeah. And I kind of quite like that as an interpretation of magic. But again, I don't know why they've got this issue with it.
No, it definitely works. I mean, I was a little disappointed with the visuals. The twisty-turny inceptionness of stuff didn't,
You know what? I know people, right? Funnily enough, I've got 2 members of my family that can't do 3D films. They get the headaches and stuff from it. I'm absolutely fine. I love them. But I actually, of all the people I know, a few people who are fine with 3D films saw Doctor Strange in the cinema, and it wasn't headaches or anything, but it just became blurry for them because there was just too much going on the screen, and it was folding the world on its axis, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When they're running down a building, and then all these and then it starts unfolding reality, and it was all geodesic designs that they're running through. And it really screwed with their eyes, apparently. I was fine, but
there's a few people they've had that problem
with visual overload, I think.
Yeah, there's a few people who've had that problem with the Spider-Verse movie as well, I think, haven't they? With the new technique that they've used in the animation there. I've heard a few people report. I've not
seen it yet.
No, I haven't.
Oh,
Daisy saw it. She was absolutely. I mean, it sounds amazing, but I just didn't get a chance. So
it looks amazing. Venom the other night, and there's a basic trailer for it at the very end.
Oh,
credits.
Well, that's right. Cool.
So, in contrast to embracing magic, this is my cheat because it's a repeat. My favourite screen choice is actually John Constantine. And again, I'll qualify. I'm speaking of Matt Ryan playing him in the DC TV series rather than Keanu Reeves' film version. Now, I have to admit, I actually like the film. I know it's nothing to do with the source material. It's so far beyond everything. But I just think as a film to watch, it was okay. I quite enjoyed it. I don't feel the need to get angry because it's nothing like the comic strip. I actually quite liked bits of it, and I thought, they've gone for style over substance, and there's a reason why they want it a self-contained film sort of thing. But I didn't think it was that bad. But the TV series, I really think Matt Ryan does a good job of capturing him. And even my sister, who is the ultimate diehard fanatic, thought that it was okay. So that really is praise. Yeah. if someone like that says it's okay. So now it is actually something I've only recently caught up with this series, and I've really enjoyed it. The middle part of the series went a bit formulaic, but it was Matt's portrayal still was what was worth watching it for. He's got the right amount of scouse in his accent that I expect. Yeah, for John. That's a big tick. He looks like Sting. Not quite Sting, but he's good. And I just think the accent's a big tick. But for me, they actually embraced the magic. they recreated, I think, the series quite well, because they captured like the ceremonies, the exorcisms, the incantations. There's a reliance on talismans and wards, and you've got the cursed objects, and yeah, it's just I thought it was a good recreation of it. Once again, cancelled. Yet another series bites the dust.
Yeah,
I hear he's coming in. He's been in and out of some of the new DC TV series. I've kind of lost track of Arrow and the Flash and Legends of Tomorrow as well. So I've not seen. Apparently he comes back as well.
Yeah, I think we saw one
back.
episode of. Yeah,
I've not seen any of the cameos, but
just
an
early one
series. It was good.
What there is a potential maybe. Now this would be the right place to have him with the new DC TV series that are being developed for their streaming service, Titans and Doom Patrol. They are doing a live action Swamp Thing.
Oh,
Swamp Thing TV series. Now that would be the obvious place to have.
Well, the proper origins, yeah.
Mm. Well, that's a good one. Okay, my last one. This is a good one. It's a bit of a deep dive. It is 2 episodes of the Justice League cartoon.
Okay.
It would have been about, again, probably around the time I was watching Samurai Jack. So it would have been in the early 2000s. It was a great continuation of the Bruce Timm styled DC animated universe. We'd had Batman the Animated Series and Superman and Batman Beyond. They really just threw everything at the Justice League cartoon. There was 2 seasons when it was called Justice League, 2 seasons after that where it was called Justice League Unlimited, and the cast just kept growing. By the end of the series, you could almost guarantee you'd seen pretty much definitely every major DC hero, but even lesser known characters like the Shining Knight, the Vigilante, the cowboy version, Creeper, all these, Hawk and Dove. But there was one that I always remembered. It really stood out, and it was a 2-parter called The Terror Beyond. And it was an episode where the Justice League learns that Aquaman helped Solomon Grundy escape from the authorities, and they discover an approaching threat to the world. And it starts with Solomon Grundy basically fighting a very army-ish looking group of soldiers. He's throwing tanks around, and it's when he comes up with the immortal line, Grundy crush, leave Grundy alone, that you suddenly realise you're not watching Solomon Grundy, you're really watching the Hulk.
Yeah.
And the whole cartoon then, the main guy against him looks very much like Thunderbolt Ross. You don't really see Solomon Grundy ever fighting tanks. So they're using the Hulk as a bit of an analogue. And then when he teams up with Aquaman and Dr. Fate, you realise it's a very early Defenders adventure. So you've got Aquaman standing in for Namor the Submariner. You've got Dr. Fate standing in for Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
And, some people have claimed that Hawk Girl is a stand-in for Nighthawk as well, but I think there's a later episode where they kind of do the same again, which you've got a better chance of arguing. But this one, another thing that makes it great, and another big sorceress element to it, is they are teaming up to face this threat, which, unbeknownst to them, other members of the Justice League end up fighting against them. So they end up fighting, I think, Hawk Girl and Superman and Wonder Woman, trying to stop them. At the end of the first episode, there's this massive, hideous, squid-like monster appears in the sky, and it's basically, in the next episode, you find out that this big squid-like monster is called Icthultu. So on top of everything else, it's the Defenders versus Cthulhu. And you've got this whole backstory about, I think it's Atlantis is under attack from the Old Ones, and you've got this great mashup then of the Defenders in a DC cartoon fighting Cthulhu. So it always stuck in my mind. Always incredibly stylish. They're always good fun.
I've just not caught up with the TV series, with the animated series.
Have you got?
And everyone keeps telling me. Sorry, have you got
Amazon Prime?
No.
They're available on Amazon Prime. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to swap.
They're on Amazon Prime. Actually. Yeah. So if you or anyone out there, they've got they've got Young Justice on there. Got a lot of the DCU. They used to have all of the Batman animated, but I think that might have got taken off because it's got re-released on Blu-ray recently. They got Batman Brave and the Bold, which was another huge favourite for me and the girls.
I have seen that one, yes.
Oh, that's fantastic. But yeah, a really great episode. They actually go into, I think, Cthulhu's realm as well. So it starts to look a little bit twisty-turny as well, a little bit like a take on a sort of Ditko-esque Doctor Strange.
Right.
Yeah, great.
Because the more I read about them, it sounds like they're using it as an excuse to be braver than they ever would if they did it in the TV series or movies. And the concepts are even braver sometimes than what they actually do in the comics.
Yeah.
I'd like to catch up with these. I really would.
They explore lots of different levels as well. So alongside the big cosmic adventures, there's a great episode with Black Canary and Wildcat, and it's about a kind of illegal fight club for superheroes. So it's a street level kind of episode. So they cover lots of aspects, and some of them do team up, and some of them do callbacks as well to some of the previous series, like Batman Beyond. So they do like to tie everything up as well. Gorgeous looking as well. The character designs are awesome. So that's a lot on screen adaptations. So we get to vote. And of course, it's sword for me. Samurai Jack, John Carter. I mean, you mentioned Afro Samurai. Definitely for me, I'm voting sword.
It's going to have to be because you mentioned John Carter as well. And I think it was always going to be because I think this is sorcery on screen was the hardest I found.
It was, wasn't it?
With not only just examples, but examples I could actually say I at least semi-liked for a reason. Really hard. Swords definitely get onto the screen easier, I think.
I do have the score sheet in front of me.
Well, I'm glad you do.
Interestingly enough, considering we spent considerably longer time discussing this subject than we did Marvel and DC, did we end up with a draw last time on Marvel versus DC?
Yeah.
Was the draw? Yeah, we've ended up with a draw again. We've just
you're kidding me.
We've just proved nothing. We haven't worked out which is better, sword or sorcery. We've just yacked for 3 hours about some of our favourite characters. So, dear listener, I hope you're not disappointed. But certainly we haven't covered.
Wasted just our own time. We've wasted everybody's time.
But hopefully there were certainly characters and films, TV shows that I hadn't watched, heard, or read. So hopefully there'd be many more for the listener to go out and look up themselves, starting with Samurai Jack, of course. There we go. Sword and sorcery, equally good, apparently.
No. And I'm going to watch Solomon Kane tonight. You've got me thinking about it. So I'm going to have to stick the Solomon Kane DVD on, I think.
Great. Well, if you have made it this far, thanks again. So until the next anniversary or special occasion, thanks a lot, and listen again soon. Ta-ra.
Cheers.
Okay, thank you very much for listening to all of that. We are going to head off now because we haven't really got anything else to talk about.
And I got a pack for me holiday.
We're going away if you listen to this. If you listen to this a year down the line, though, we've been away.
Oh, it was lovely, probably. But it's going to be colder down there, which is not fair. I'm going south just to get some warmth, and it's going to be warmer here than it is down there.
Well, that'll teach you a lesson, won't it? I'll tell you what we can briefly talk about, actually.
I'm going to buy some rock.
We'll be at Oldham Comic Con
I will be. Sorry, we will be.
Beginning of May.
Yes.
So,
God, is it the beginning of May?
Yeah, it's like the 5th of May or something.
Oh, God.
So we'll talk about that more next episode. But yeah, if you go into that, come and say hello.
Please come
buy
and say
Nikki's
hello.
new comic.
Just buy anything off me, really.
Yeah.
I've got key earrings for 50p. I mean...
So we've been thinking about what we're going to do in regards to that, haven't we? About
what, my key
tables
rings?
and what you sell, because we've only got a couple of comics and really want a little bit more merch. So we thought about mugs. They're not the cheapest.
No.
In fact, nothing works out cheap. So
yes,
you're going to be doing some original art.
Because, you know, why buy things and make things when I can sit there and slave away?
Yes. Yes. It's cheap.
Turn out the art, Nikki.
So you'll be able to buy some art there, and we may even... I'm going to persuade her to do some drawing on the day. So if you want an piece
no, don't make me do that. No, because someone come up and go, oh, do you know what I want? I want a dinosaur flying through the air on a jet fighter.
Postcard size
in space. And I'll be like, oh, idea.
In space.
And no, don't make me do that.
We'll see. Anyway, we're also signed up to go to Parry Macclesfield in June, I think it is.
I'll be there too. How do I not get the Comic Con cold?
Well, we only go for
CCC.
day ones. That's why you don't.
The CCCs?
Comic Con. It's more weekend ones.
I got something. Remember we went to MacPow last year, and I was ill.
That's because Macclesfield.
Oh
no,
is it?
you take hand cleaner stuff. That's what I believe is the way forward.
Is that the way forward?
That's the way forward.
Not gloves, because I was thinking maybe surgical gloves.
You'll either look weird
and
or very stuck up. Hello, you northern scum.
That's how I talk, isn't it?
Yes. What? So, yeah, and then we're also hoping to be at MCM Manchester.
Yeah, not tabling.
Not tabling, though.
No, we'll just be wandering around.
And wandering around. I think Thought Bubble, I think we've sort of almost decided that we will go there.
Yes.
I think we will go there for the day.
We will go there.
For a day. And see people. So
hug people.
We'll
I think
be
you've got to hug Matt Garvey, I seem to remember.
If he's there. If Matt Garvey's there, he will be hugged.
That's a worrying thought. He's so not going to be there now.
No.
I wouldn't be.
He's not going to listen anyway, so don't be like...
Does he not listen? We can call him everything.
We usually do.
Yeah, it's true.
So, yeah, if you go into any of the events, then come and say hi. If we're, we'll even bring comics to the ones we're not tabling with the thought that they could buy from us.
That's naughty.
No, it's not.
Pretty certain that's naughty.
It's not.
Pretty certain that we're going to be like frog march to the exit. No.
So that's good. So your comic's coming out very shortly. It's now
1st
you
of
can
May.
still pre-order Leaf. You now get a free print with it as well. If you pre-order.
Yes, it's a very lovely free
and
print.
£3.
£3.
Although if you get it from Waterstones, it's not.
No, because it's $3.99.
Full price.
Yeah, $3.99 for them.
So,
but you can also go in, like I'm going to do, is order my own comic to pick up at Waterstones, just so I can go in and go, oh, I'd like the comic by Nicole Bates, please. What's your name?
Bates.
J.R. Hartley.
So on this episode, we've discussed
Only some
Paul
people
Daniels
are going to get that. People over 40.
and an 80s advert.
For Yellow Pages.
Weird. So you're off, man.
Don't. I spoke to someone the other day and I went, oh, do you remember Bob Monkhouse? And they went, no. And then someone else at work said about MC Hammer and did, the dance. Didn't get it. In fact, people don't even know what Fraggle Rock is. That's a worrying thought.
It sounded like you said fat people don't know what Fraggle Rock is when you actually said, in fact, people don't.
No, I said, in fact, people. Why would I say the other?
I know you wouldn't, but it just sounded weird.
No, sorry.
So, Fraggle Rock is amazing.
Yes, exactly.
Right, thank you very much for listening.
Let your cares away.
We'll be back on the 1st of May with a guest yet to be announced. Say goodbye, Nicole.
Goodbye, Nicole.
Goodbye. Oh, jeez. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you for listening. Find out more about the festival at comicartfestival.com. Find out more about the show and how to contact us at comicartpodcast.uk. Find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Music composed by Pop Noir.